The vast, gleaming council chamber of the Galactic Union was filled with representatives from the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The space station they gathered in was as massive as it was majestic, floating in orbit around a star system where starships passed like glowing fireflies. Among the many species that filled the room, one lone human sat quietly, Sergeant Thomas "Tommy" Holloway, a Marine whose presence seemed unremarkable compared to the extraordinary beings surrounding him. With his neatly pressed uniform and strong, quiet demeanor, Holloway could have easily been mistaken for just another soldier from Earth, a species that, to many, was still a distant curiosity in the eyes of the galaxy's elite. The reason for this particular meeting was the discussion of a peace treaty, one that would bring an end to centuries of conflict between rival factions in a neighboring star system. Yet, as the representatives debated, something curious began to unfold. It wasn't long before the focus shifted from the treaty itself to an almost mocking discussion of Earth's military culture. Humanity's obsession with rigid codes and rules is nothing more than a primitive weakness, a leader of an insectoid species sneered, his antennae twitching in disdain. In our civilization, we don't need such shackles. We evolve, we adapt, and we thrive. The humans, on the other hand, seem stuck in their outdated notions of honor and duty. A laugh rippled through the room as various representatives nodded in agreement. Yes, they fight with rules that bind them, another alien chimed in. No room for creative tactics, no space for innovation. A warrior confined to a book of laws can't possibly be efficient. The room grew louder, the laughter and mocking tones growing bolder with every passing second. Imagine it, said the Kuthar, a race of cold, calculating beings who had long abandoned all emotions. A human on a battlefield, refusing to break his own code despite the consequences. It's like trying to swim with your legs tied. They are bound by their so-called honor and duty, concepts that only slow them down. Holloway sat still, his face a mask of calmness. Inside, though, a storm was brewing. He could feel the words digging at him, the scorn of these advanced species who didn't understand the essence of what made humans powerful. The code, the rules they followed, wasn't just about tradition or outdated beliefs. It was about strength, unity, and unwavering resolve in the face of overwhelming odds. It was something that transcended individual brilliance, something that bound them together as a force. But the aliens didn't see that. To them, it was nothing more than a weakness. One of the council members, a strange being of liquid and light, who barely had a physical form, asked with a slight smirk, "But how does a human warrior think on the battlefield? Do you truly expect to win with mere discipline? With only the repetition of rules?" The question hung in the air as the members of the council leaned forward, eager to hear Holloway's response. Tommy had heard the ridicule before. Back home, many had doubted the Marines. They thought their rules were too rigid, their strategies too predictable. But humanity had proven time and time again that what the aliens saw as limitations was in fact their greatest strength. Tommy knew the time would come, soon, that these alien leaders would realize just how wrong they were. The questions, the laughter, the mockery, they would all soon vanish. Because when it came to the test, when it came to real combat, the human way would speak for itself. Until then, Holloway said nothing, his lips set in a firm line, his eyes unwavering. He was ready for what was to come, and so was humanity. Soon, they would learn. After the council meeting, the galaxy's calm was shattered by a chilling announcement. A rogue pirate faction, led by the infamous warlord Vrax, had seized control of an entire star system. The pirates had taken dozens of hostages, and diplomatic talks had failed. Desperate to avoid further bloodshed, the council's leaders gathered in a hurried emergency session. Tensions ran high as the various species began to argue over the best course of action. Some suggested using overwhelming firepower to obliterate the pirate stronghold, while others favored a more calculated, strategic approach. In the end, unable to agree on any one plan, They reluctantly decided to send a special team of elite warriors to handle the situation. But this wasn't going to be just any team. The Council, in its infinite wisdom, had chosen only the best from each of the galaxy's most advanced species, powerful fighters with abilities ranging from adaptive biology to energy-based weapons, and some even wielded technology capable of manipulating space itself. Then, as if an afterthought, they selected Sergeant Tommy Holloway, the lone human Marine, to accompany them. The moment the decision was made, the room erupted in quiet chuckles. The alien warriors couldn't help but sneer at the idea of a human soldier participating in such an operation. A human carrying nothing but a rifle? How quaint, one of the alien generals murmured, his voice filled with condescension. Holloway's unremarkable gear, simple military armor and a standard-issue rifle, stood in stark contrast to the alien warriors' advanced technology, their weapons capable of tearing apart entire cities. Yet, the Council remained indifferent to the humans' reputation for resilience, and the decision was made. Soon, Holloway found himself aboard a sleek transport ship, headed straight for the pirate-controlled world. The journey was tense, filled with hushed conversations between the alien combatants who clearly doubted the humans' abilities. The atmosphere was thick with skepticism. When they arrived, however, the pirates had already shown their cunning. The planet's surface, once a vibrant landscape, was now a fortress, a maze of trenches, barricades, and heavily fortified positions. The pirates were well prepared, and as soon as the team touched down, they found themselves walking directly into a trap. The pirates had anticipated their arrival, and they had set an ambush. As the team moved through the dense forest toward the pirate compound, the silence of the planet was shattered by sudden gunfire and explosions. The ground seemed to shake with the force of the blasts. The alien warriors, accustomed to their high-tech gadgets and near-invincible abilities, were taken off guard. Their advanced weaponry and energy shields faltered against the pirates' unexpected tactics. Panic spread quickly among the team. Alien soldiers with incredible adaptive capabilities and high-tech weaponry were finding themselves outclassed by the simplest of traps, hidden explosives, primitive mines, and ambush points that seemed to come from nowhere. The pirates had used the terrain to their advantage, setting up lines of fire that would force the elite soldiers into vulnerable positions. The alien fighters, who had never experienced something so chaotic, began to lose their composure. Some of the most confident warriors were now frozen in fear, their minds overwhelmed by the unpredictable situation. Meanwhile, Holloway, calm as ever, surveyed the chaos. He saw through the confusion. This was no longer a battlefield of superior tech or overwhelming power. It was a test of strategy, of knowing how to use the environment, of understanding when to move and when to wait. Without a word, he took charge. He shouted orders, quickly organizing the alien warriors into a defensive formation. It wasn't about power. It was about knowing when to fall back, when to regroup, and how to outsmart an opponent who underestimated them. Stay low. Move as a unit, Holloway barked, his voice steady and strong. The aliens, despite their doubts, followed his instructions. Holloway's command was precise. No one else had the clarity of thought in the midst of such disarray. Slowly, methodically, the group began to reclaim control of the situation. The human Marine's unshakable discipline, his adherence to the rules of engagement, began to show its worth. The aliens, who had laughed at humanity's rigid codes, now saw their effectiveness in action. Holloway led the team forward, guiding them through the ambush with simple yet effective tactics. One step at a time, they moved closer to the pirate compound, with Holloway's leadership allowing them to outmaneuver the pirates and reestablish their footing. The alien warriors were no longer laughing. They were watching, learning. The battle raged around them, a chaotic storm of blaster fire, explosions, and the distant roars of the pirates. The alien warriors, once so sure of their superiority, were now clearly rattled. Their advanced weapons, their adaptive biology, their enhanced reflexes, all of it seemed useless against the pirates' clever traps and guerrilla tactics. The dense jungle surrounding the pirate base had been transformed into a deadly maze, filled with snares, hidden explosives, and ambush points that the pirates used to their advantage. The alien fighters, despite their abilities, were stumbling through the chaos, losing their cool. Some were trapped, others injured, and some had already begun to retreat. The situation seemed hopeless. In the midst of the disarray, Sergeant Tommy Holloway stood motionless, his eyes scanning the battlefield. His grip on his rifle tightened, but his expression remained calm, almost detached. "We need to stick to the plan, follow the rules," he said, his voice cutting through the confusion like a knife. The aliens paused, stunned by his unshakable composure. Their minds, accustomed to flexibility and innovation in battle, couldn't understand why the human remained so calm when everything around them was falling apart. They looked at him as if he had lost his mind. "Stick to the plan? What plan? We're being overwhelmed!" one of the alien soldiers shouted, his voice full of panic. But Holloway didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he took control, his every word deliberate and firm. "We're not going to panic. We'll adapt. You form defensive positions here, here, and here," he ordered, pointing to strategic points on the map. "You cover the left flank. You guard the rear. We hold this position until we have a way forward." His tactical approach was methodical, precise. He wasn't asking for perfection. He was asking for discipline, for teamwork, for a focus on the rules that had guided countless successful operations before. At first, the aliens argued, their frustration evident. "You can't be serious," one of them snapped. "This is an advanced battlefield. How can your rules stand against the pirates' weapons?" But Holloway's calm never wavered. He merely repeated his orders, his confidence in the human code unshaken. Slowly, the alien warriors began to listen, the weight of his unflinching resolve starting to sink in. They were warriors, after all, and Holloway's leadership was beginning to strike a chord. As the minutes passed, Holloway's tactical genius unfolded. He began leading the team through the pirate base, with each movement a reflection of humanity's core values: teamwork, discipline, and adaptability. The pirates were good, but they were unprepared for a fight that wasn't just about overwhelming force. Holloway's team used the environment against the enemy, setting traps, creating diversions, and luring pirates into carefully planned ambushes. The alien warriors, who had once thought their advanced tech would give them an unbeatable advantage, now found themselves surprised at how effective the simplest of human tactics were. Holloway used simple tools, shards of broken metal, loose wires, and even the terrain itself, to trap the pirates in ways they never imagined. The pirates' advanced weaponry, once so imposing, was now being outwitted at every turn. They were caught off guard, confused by a foe that didn't play by the rules they understood. As the team pushed deeper into the pirate stronghold, the alien warriors were starting to understand. What had once seemed like a foolish, outdated approach was turning into a series of strategic victories. The pirates' numbers dwindled, their defenses faltered, and Holloway led his team with unshakable precision. By the time they reached the pirate leader, the alien soldiers who had once laughed at humanity's rules were no longer laughing. They were silent, watching, their respect for the human marines slowly growing. The pirate leader, a towering figure covered in battle armor and wielding a weapon that could cut through almost anything, stood at the end of a long corridor, waiting for them. Holloway paused for a moment, studying the pirate. The final battle was upon them, but now, thanks to the human marine's calm leadership and unflinching adherence to his code, the team was ready. The pirates had underestimated humanity. They had underestimated the power of unity, of strategy, and of a marine's resolve. The final confrontation was nothing short of a nightmare. In the heart of the pirate stronghold, the pirate warlord, a hulking alien towering over 7 feet, stood waiting. His eyes burned with psychic power, and the very air around him seemed to crackle with energy. The alien warriors, whose advanced abilities had carried them through countless battles, readied their weapons, confident in their ability to defeat this foe. But the moment the warlord unleashed his first blast, the ground trembled violently, and the team was immediately thrown into disarray. A surge of raw, destructive energy lashed out, sending several of the alien warriors sprawling, their shields flickering weakly in the face of such power. It was clear the pirate warlord's abilities far outmatched anything they had encountered. The psychic blasts disintegrated metal, tore apart stone, and left deep craters in their wake. For the first time in this mission, the alien warriors hesitated. They were used to overwhelming their enemies with superior firepower. But this opponent couldn't be defeated with sheer strength. One of the alien commanders shouted, "We need to attack him all at once! All at once!" But their initial chaotic approach was futile. The warlord's psychic power tore through them, sending them scattering, each fighter barely managing to avoid death. Holloway, however, stood unaffected by the chaos. His rifle was steady in his hands, and his eyes, locked on the warlord, remained calm. The pandemonium around him seemed to vanish, as if he existed in a world of his own. While the alien warriors were overwhelmed, Holloway took a moment to study the terrain, every corner, every shadow, every possible escape route. He understood that brute force would never win this fight. He needed to outsmart the warlord. "Fall back," Holloway ordered, his voice cutting through the confusion. "Form up on me." His orders were firm, but his calmness in the face of such power was enough to snap the aliens back into focus. They regrouped, moving quickly to avoid further blasts. They had to move smartly, and they had to do it together. Holloway led the team, directing them into specific positions, drawing the warlord's focus and forcing him to overextend his power. Every move the Marine made was deliberate, calculated, and based on his deep understanding of the rules of warfare, the importance of positioning, patience, and precision. He didn't need flashy weapons or destructive powers. Holloway understood that the battlefield was a puzzle, and every enemy was just another piece to be moved. The pirate leader, in his arrogance, tried to catch Holloway off guard with a psychic blast that tore through a nearby pillar. But Holloway had anticipated it. He used the cover of the crumbling building to outflank the warlord. "Now!" he shouted, to the team, his voice commanding. In an instant, the alien warriors executed a coordinated strike, drawing the pirate warlord's attention toward them as Holloway took the perfect shot from his position. His rifle cracked, a single well-aimed round striking the warlord square in the chest. The psychic force that had protected him faltered for a split second, enough for the warlord to be incapacitated, crumpling to the ground with a thundering crash. The team stood in stunned silence for a brief moment, the weight of the victory sinking in. But Holloway wasted no time. He immediately moved forward, directing the team to secure the hostages, who had been hidden in a nearby room, their faces pale and filled with fear. With practiced efficiency, the human Marine ensured the hostages were safely transported to the extraction point. The pirates, having lost their leader, were scattered and disorganized. They posed little threat as the team moved in, rounding them up and ensuring their surrender. By the time they left the pirate base, the once mighty force was defeated, not by superior technology, not by the warlord's psychic abilities, but by the discipline, focus, and teamwork that Holloway had instilled in his team. It wasn't about strength or advanced weapons. It was about working together, staying calm under pressure, and trusting in the rules. The pirate base was now in ruins, but the mission had been a success. The human Marine had proven what the alien warriors had never understood. Victory came not from power alone, but from the strength of resolve, unity, and unwavering purpose. Back aboard the space station, a heavy silence hung in the air as the sea. Members of the Galactic Council watched the transmission of the completed mission. The once confident alien warriors who had scoffed at humanity's rigid code now sat in quiet reverence, their expressions showing a mixture of awe and humility. The council chamber, usually filled with the sounds of debate and condescension, now felt different, more somber, more reflective. Each species, once so certain of their superiority, was beginning to question the value of their own ways, having witnessed firsthand the effectiveness of a human marine's steadfast adherence to his principles. Among them stood the Kuthar leader, the one who had dismissed Sergeant Tommy Holloway's military code as a relic of a primitive age. The cold, emotionless leader, whose warriors valued logic above all else, now approached the human. His sharp, alien features softened as he spoke, his voice measured but genuine. "You humans, you fight with honor, but more importantly, you understand that the rules are what make you strong," he began, his words filled with a rare sense of respect. "We were blinded by our own confidence, believing that superior technology and power alone would lead us to victory. We failed to see what was truly important until it was too late." Holloway stood silently, his expression unchanged, his eyes still as calm as they had been on the battlefield. He nodded slightly, acknowledging the praise without needing to speak. But then, after a moment's pause, he offered his perspective. "The rules aren't what make us strong. It's knowing when to follow them and when to adapt. You can't break the rules without understanding them first." His voice was steady, unassuming, but it carried the weight of someone who had lived by those words in countless battles. It was the subtle truth that set humanity apart, not the adherence to rigid codes alone, but the wisdom to recognize when those codes should be bent or adjusted, all for the greater good of the mission. The Kuthar leader listened intently, his gaze shifting to the other council members, many of whom were now beginning to reconsider their earlier judgments of humanity's methods. The once dismissive looks were gone, replaced with thoughtful expressions as the implications of the mission settled in. These powerful alien warriors, who had relied on their advanced technology and superior biology, now understood that what they had mocked was, in fact, an essential strength of human warfare. The ability to remain grounded in the face of overwhelming odds, to trust in one's comrades and one's own instincts. This was the true power of humanity's way. As the council members exchanged glances, the change in attitude was palpable. The conversation that had once centered around human weakness and inflexibility now shifted to one of quiet admiration. The lesson, learned the hard way, would not soon be forgotten. Holloway, for his part, said little. He had come to do a job, and he had done it well. The mission was a success, and the pirates had been defeated. But now, as the council members' eyes fell on him with newfound respect, he knew his work was done. He had proved not just to the council but to himself that humanity's strength was not in the weapons they wielded or the technologies they invented. It was in their resolve, their commitment to the rules they believed in, and their ability to adapt when the time came. As the meeting came to a close, the members of the council began to disperse, murmuring amongst themselves. Some spoke of incorporating human tactics into their own military strategies. Others debated whether the value of honor and loyalty might be worth reconsidering in light of their previous victories. Holloway, however, quietly gathered his things, preparing to leave the station and return to his home world. He had never sought recognition. He had never asked for validation. But now, as the council acknowledged humanity's strength, he couldn't help but feel a sense of quiet satisfaction. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's rules, dismissed them as outdated and irrelevant. Yet, in the heat of battle, those very rules had proven to be a force the galaxy could not ignore. As Holloway boarded the transport ship to return home, he knew one thing for sure. The lesson had been learned. The galaxy might never look at humanity the same way again, And it was all thanks to the courage, discipline, and teamwork that had guided him and his team through the impossible. The ship's engines hummed to life, and as it sailed into the vastness of space, Sergeant Holloway allowed himself a brief, satisfied smile. The rules had never been more than a guide, but sometimes that was all it took to win.